Alright, today I'm taking a look at the TOAUTO upgraded melting furnace. So that's cool. It actually comes with gloves. Something I was thinking I was going to need to get, but no, it's got them, so that's good. Got some instructions. Oh, look at that. It's even got a little chart for the different types of metal, so that's important. 660 for aluminum, which is what I'm going to be working with mostly. Power cord. Got our tongs. Feel pretty light, easy to handle, and they line up pretty well, so that's important. Very cool. So anything that we're going to melt, we have to be able to fit inside of there. It's not huge, but it really doesn't need to be because I'm not going to be to cast engine blocks or anything like that. Oh, looks like we got a second one. Wow. All right. So a big one. So two different sizes. You can see there. That's quite a bit different volume. The base is bigger. Pretty much everything about it is bigger. So this one looks like it's about almost 1 3/4 inches, and it's about 6 inches deep. And then the smaller one is closer to 1 1/2, and it's about 4 1/2 inches deep. All right, and there's our casts. So that's cool. So we can make a bunch of little coins. That's pretty cool. So it does have a probe in there. Looks like we got a display here. So the small one is kind of a loose fit. So make it a little easier to pull out, I think. Yeah, that's actually quite doable. I was a little worried because of the length, you know, whatever factors that this was going to be difficult, but it's actually not a problem. It's going to be a little heavier, of course, when it's got the metal in it. I think that's completely doable. And the bigger one's a little heavier. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's an issue. So I just want to make sure that we have it oriented in such a way that we can easily pour. Yeah, not too bad. Cool. Now something I did notice about these is the handles on here are not perfect. They kind of want to slip, and that would be really bad if that thing slipped off while I was holding that. So I just have to be careful about that. Looks pretty simple actually. Just got power, temperature set, and then melt some aluminum. Alright, today I'm going to attempt the ancient art of making a round to it. I have not smelted anything in my life ever, so this is going to be my very first attempt. As with anything new, I did a whole bunch of research online and tried to figure out exactly what I was going to need. And so I got a few things to prep. So this is a cocktail spoon. I'm going to be attempting to melt aluminum cans, and what I need is something that's long enough that I can keep my hand away from the heat, but it's also small enough to fit inside of that crucible. So I think this is going to be perfect. This is stainless steel. It melts at about 1500 degrees. It will transfer heat up the handle to my hand, but it will not melt. So this should be good for pulling out the slag, I hope. And this is fire brick. So this is supposed to be for like super high heat for furnaces and that kind of thing, but more importantly, it doesn't have any water in it. So if I try to do this just on the ground, I could potentially damage the floor. I'm not too worried about damaging the floor, but I am worried about is the water that's inside the concrete. If the molten metal hits it, it could just like turn into steam instantly and fire that across the room. So this is dry. I know this is dry, but on top of that, it's going to give me a little bit of a raise off the ground so that I can put my mold on top of here, and then hopefully that's going to make the pour a little bit easier. So we'll find out. The last thing I got is for the mold. One of the things that they always say is you should always preheat the molds before you actually do the pour. I would have gotten propane, but they were literally out, so I just got MAP gas instead. It burns like 100 degrees hotter. It's like less than 3% hotter than propane. But they had it, so that's what I got. And then this is the TS8000. This is the Cadillac of torches. From what I saw online, the thing that makes most difference in the heat is the torch head itself. So that's why I wanted this one. This one has a knob on the side, so you can control the amount of fuel that you use. And if you open it all the way up, it will literally heat twice as fast as a TS4000 and much faster than a propane torch. And what's great about this is I can use this head on MAP gas or on propane. I'm going to start with closed. And this should only be tightened by hand. Okay, so now if I pull the trigger, it will send a spark in, so it will ignite. And so I'm going to open up the gas. There we go. Super easy to use. So I'm going to be doing what I think most people think of when they start doing this is I'm going to melt down some aluminum cans. Now the aluminum itself should not be toxic, but the chemicals, the coatings, the paint and everything on here could be toxic. So I am going to concern myself with ventilation. So I'm going to run a fan and I'm going to open up that door. Now these cans will not fit inside even the large crucible, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of prep work. So I started crushing it in the vise and just bending it until I got that. That'll work. So the second and third ones I think came out a little bit better. So it's just, you know, a little bit of practice. So this is a pretty small mold. I'm not going to need a lot of cans. In fact, I'm probably going to need like 3. From what I saw online, about 36 cans will make 1 pound of aluminum, and that's definitely much less than a pound. Now, half of the can is going to disappear as slag, but I'm going to guesstimate that 3 cans is going to be enough for a round to it. So I'm going to start with this, and if I got to make more cans, then I'll do that. So I need about 660 degrees for aluminum. I think I'll just make it 700, and that's in Celsius. So we're starting at 12 o'clock. So there's one other thing that I didn't get, which is salt. Some people say for melting aluminum you should get salt and you should use it as a flux, and what that means is that the aluminum itself will crystallize on the top and it will form what's called dross. And so dross is just aluminum that's no good anymore. And if you put salt in it, that salt will float to the top and it will protect the aluminum so it doesn't oxidize, so it doesn't form dross. So you do have to argue, do I use 10 cents worth of salt or 10 cents worth of aluminum? So I'm going to try to do it just by itself with just the aluminum without the salt and see how that goes. And if I need to, I'll add salt later. But I think one of the cooler things about this is that it'll actually heat up enough to melt aluminum, and it'll do it all in a standard 120 volt outlet. So I don't need 220. This uses about as much power as a space heater, and space heaters use a lot of power over time. But since I'm only going to be running this thing for like an hour or two, you know, maybe 5 hours max, it's just not really using a heck of a lot of power, but it still has the capacity to melt metal. So that's kind of amazing to me. So it's 12:10 now, and it's at 223 degrees, and it's actually starting to climb pretty quick now. So it started at 24 degrees, and it was, you know, it took a while to actually start going, but now that it's building up in temperature, it's going about 1 degree a second. It's now 12:17, and I just passed 400 degrees, so it's 417 right now. I am starting to see some smoke, but it is good to know that the fan is actually working and blowing everything out. So there is some argument whether or not you should be wearing some kind of a respirator. This is aluminum, so I'm not too awful worried about it. If I was going to be doing brass or something like that, they recommended use a respirator for that. Okay, and I hit 600 now. And it is 12:25. So any minute that aluminum could start melting. Now, because it's just a can, it doesn't have to be pure, like perfect aluminum. So there could be, you know, other alloys in there, and it could require more heat. So that's why I've got it set to 700, but I don't want to go too high. I'm going to start with the 700. I'm going to see how that works. So I want something covering my face. I want long sleeves. Ideally, I would have something covering my legs. People do this with a lot less, but this is what I'm doing because I don't want to melt my face. Okay, it is 657 degrees. It is 12:27. So I'm going to check it out, and I'm going to add some more of these cans, and I'm going to see just how it works. But one of the things I want to be careful about is because I did just wash these cans yesterday, there could still be some water droplets in there. When I drop them in, those could, you know, evaporate into steam super quick, so gotta be a little careful about that. That's pretty cool looking. Yeah, so right now it's just burning off the coatings and that kind of thing. It's not really anything to worry about. Just know that, you know, it is making some fumes. I can hear the controller clicking on and off, and that first can was melting, like I was just pushing it down into molten metal. So that's cool. So I took the grips off of the tongs. That way I don't have to worry about them slipping on me. I'm going to start by trying to scrape out any of the slag that's in there. There wasn't really a heck of a lot of aluminum in there, so I'm going to see how that works. And if there's enough, I'm going to try to pour. So I'm getting 647 degrees on the metal itself. Okay. On the second test, I got 709. It's important to pour away from yourself. Okay. Very first pour. It didn't go everywhere. It's one of the nice things about aluminum. There we go. Look at that. That is pretty amazing. Very first smelt. Oops. So yeah, ultimately this thing's pretty awesome. Great for beginners, like all the things that I was worried about and I was taking extra precaution on ended up not being a problem at all. So this is just like a super easy thing to get started on. So I think this is a great place to get your feet wet, just on account of if I start with this and I've realized that I like it, the sky's the limit for really where you can go with this. Like you can get bigger crucibles, you can get bigger casts, you can do stuff that can do more heat. Like there's a million ways to go with this, but this is a great place to start just to kind of figure out, is this something I even enjoy? And I can tell you, I enjoyed it. I think it's pretty cool. It's kind of a funny thing because like all these extra precautions and things that I was worried about, like, I don't want to melt my face. And all of those things are very important because obviously you don't want to get injured. Safety is very important. But at the same time, people have been doing this for, what, thousands of years now? And this is really not that complicated. I mean, you put the thing in there, you melt it, you pour it. Like that's all there is to it. And on top of that, like there's technology in here, like that controller that can control the temperature. Like they would have killed to have that technology 1,000 years ago. Like I just press a couple buttons, it automatically sets the temperature, brings it up to that temperature, holds that temperature. It's kind of amazing actually when you think about it.